Hey, Three Crosses family, welcome back to the Going Deeper podcast. My name is AJ. I oversee life groups and discipleship. And today we are jumping into our Honest to God series. We're looking at Psalm chapter 4. Psalm chapter 4. So if you have your Bible, we'd love for you to follow along in this conversation. It's going to be a great talk about anger. And so we look forward to getting into this conversation, but before we do, we'd love you to fill out our podcast survey. Go to threecrosses.church/podcasts and tell us who you are, where you're listening from, and we'd love to put a free gift to Neighborhood Coffee in your hands. Also, check out our With Us podcast. It's a podcast going through all the struggles of life, and so if you're interested in checking that out, we'd love for you to listen. It's been so impactful, so many great stories shared, and a lot of great wisdom around the topics of things like anger, depression, suicidal ideation, all these different categories. Well, we're going to jump into Psalm 4, and so with that, let's go deeper. Joining us to unpack Psalm 4, Austin Payne. Austin, welcome. I have no fashion upgrades to report.
I love it. Hey, Psalm 4 was my sports number all the way through.
Oh, yeah?
Lucky
really?
number 4.
Yeah.
Psalm 4, baby.
Yeah, Psalm 4. And I know off air you had talked about how much you really appreciated this one. And so there's a lot to get to today.
There's a lot to get to.
We're going to jump right in, starting with the very basic subscript. For the director of music with stringed instruments, a psalm of David.
But like heavy metal stringed instruments, because like anger, you know, like the kind of like what's that Christmas? The like heavy metal
like
version,
ELO or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, it's that.
So
those stringed instruments.
I know anger is like one of like you're saying, it's like a fierce topic, you know. And so, what do you make of it? Connected to stringed instruments. What do you make of it connected to music in general? I think that's a very interesting concept of the Psalms.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I don't know. It's like we don't sing them, we read them. So it's like I don't know what the connection is necessarily, but I do love that music is such a powerful tool for remembering. Like I think about a song that I haven't heard in years that I know every word to, you know, like that one. No, this literally happened to me on Sunday. I went out for the root beer floats, and students was playing like a Hawk Nelson song that I hadn't heard since like junior high, and I'm like, I know every word to this song, right? Like music is powerful, and so I wonder if a part of the Psalms, like this language for our souls, is the ability to get a song stuck in your head. And to consistently like dwell on something or marinate on something, like music does that for us.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Just quick Google of like which Psalms had stringed instruments on them, and there were 7. So 4, 6, 54, 55, 61, 67, 76. It was really cool to remember like David was a instrumentalist. He was a player of the lyre. Yeah. And so it's just
big
really
harp
cool.
guy.
Yeah, big harp guy. It's really cool to think about like somebody expressing their emotions via song. And it's just kind of like, even before we get into the topic of anything like this, it's like remembering this is artistic. This is being sung in most cases. So let's jump in. I mean, do you have anything to add?
All I was going to say is I'm currently prepping my Psalm 51 sermon.
Okay.
So it's interesting thinking about the like David that we've been talking to up into this point, and we're like, he's an instrumentalist and he's remembering that God is this and that. But like the Psalm 51 David in my mind is like pretty gnarly. Like it's immediately in the wake of all the Bathsheba stuff. Yeah. And so I'm thinking about David as, you know, man after God's own heart, which we're going to unpack in Psalm 51, what that actually means. But it's funny for me to separate those two things, because I'm like Psalm 4 living in that, but also Psalm 51 prepping, thinking through. David was, my old pastor was literally like, I don't know if David's in heaven. He literally was like, his whole take on even the David and Goliath situation is like, he would just say like chicks and bucks. Like if you look at what David's promised, like his motivation for killing Goliath. It's like, was he honoring the Lord, or was he after money and the daughter of the king?
Interesting. Yeah.
He's a very interesting, dynamic character that I would not want as my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Just saying.
You could just take the Psalms as a collective and just imagine that like up and down roller coaster.
For
Like
sure.
one day he's like on cloud 9. Next day he's like, what's going on? And
Right.
so, yeah,
Like David would not get hired at any modern church. He's not qualified,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah. It's super interesting. And so, yeah, here we have this guy described after God's own heart. And I love the first verses of this because it's like 4 imperatives, like rattled off.
Yeah.
Beginning with answer me, like the gall of this guy. Answer me when I call to you,
Yeah.
my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayers. So there it is. Answer me, give me relief, have mercy on me, and hear. All imperatives. And I've been reflecting on this. Like, I feel like David either is a crazy man, like we've been talking about, or he's like boldly praying for things, maybe at a level where I'm not so bold. I'm like kind of like, oh Lord, like please. But it's just really interesting, these 4 imperatives. And so even before we get into this, how do those 4 imperatives speak to the rest of the psalm? Like what are so important about those 4? Like answer me, give me relief, have mercy on me, and hear my prayers.
Yeah, I think to your point, there's like a boldness in his approach to his relationship with God that I admire. I think like what's interesting about my anger is sometimes my anger like removes me from the presence of the Lord. Like I'm like, this is like my anger. And then I come back to God typically to like repent, right? Whereas it feels like in his anger, he goes directly to the Lord. And I think that's where the whole premise of the sermon was like anchoring our anger. Like what does anchored, examined anger look like versus like unanchored, unexamined anger typically spills out, lashes out, right? Like if you think about that list that was on the note sheet. And so I love, I mean, even those first 4 things, like this is language that he's using to go to the Lord that I think is a good model and like a trellis for us to build on of there really is no separation between, well, this is what I'm feeling emotionally, but this is what I know to be true spiritually. It's like for David, there seems to be this cohesion between those 2 things, which is instructive.
Yeah, like he's bringing it to the Lord. Yeah, it's really cool to see all these different imperatives play out throughout the Psalms. Like, I was just kind of curious, like, how many times is answer me in there? You know, it feels like answer me is like a common refrain. 14 times in the Psalms. Have mercy 19 times. And it's really cool here, like it's derived from that word Shema. So it's hear my prayers,
Israel,
you know? And like God is saying, hear, O Israel, like, and now David is bringing back to the Lord, saying, hear my prayers. Like, this is very interesting. Like,
right. I even think about, I mean, so much of the theme of the Old Testament, right, is like, I'm the God of Abraham, I'm the God of Isaac, I'm the God of Jacob.
Yeah.
Like Exodus 3, when God introduces himself to Moses, essentially, right? Moses is 80 years old at this point, probably has some understanding about who Yahweh is, but not really. And God says, like, I don't know what the exact list is, but he says like, I have heard the cries of Israel. I'm concerned. And therefore, like, I'm coming down, like I have a solution in play here. And then is going to tell Moses that Moses is going to play a part in that. Right. And then the classic, like, I think it's 7 times in 2 chapters. He's like, pick someone else. I don't talk too good. What if they don't believe me? And in the middle of this, God says, like, I am who I am. Right. Which I think that stability allows us to trust, which is so much of this sermon was us talking about, like, when we bring our anger to God, it actually builds this foundation that we can trust him in the midst of it. That a lot of anger is based off of those 2 questions of, like, this is wrong, right? This is like some sort of injustice. I hear me, like, these people are dragging my name through the mud. Like, David's calling out this injustice, and then, like, what's wrong, and then how am I against it, right? Which we now can take to God because he sees injustice, which makes the God of the Bible incredible, right? That's what makes the gospel beautiful, is like the wrath piece, which we can talk about more. But I think that I am who I am nature, it creates a trustworthiness, right? Like if I just asked you like, hey, do you trust me? You're like, well, we've known each other for like 2.5 years, right? Yeah. It's like, it's what's your resume? What have you done? What's trustworthiness, character, right? All those things. If someone random busts through the doors right now of the podcast studio and was like, AJ, come with me, we'd be like, no, like we're doing something, right? But if your wife popped through the door and said like, come with me, you'd be like, yeah, for sure. Because you trust your wife. And so I think there's a trustworthiness in a God who says, I am who I am, that allows David to come to that God and emote, right? Which is so different than any of the other like gods, lowercase g, of the ancient Near East that needed to be like summoned and appeased, and like, you don't anger the gods, don't do anything that, displeases them. We have to sacrifice this, that, and that to get rain. And if we don't get rain, we gotta, I just like, what I love about this passage, and even the point that I made to start my sermon of God's face shining upon him, is I really think David had a deep level of understanding that God's presence changed everything, even in his like, sorry to spill into Psalm 51, but like, against you and only you have I sinned. Like, that's such an offensive statement to Uriah and Bathsheba, unless you understand like who God is and like the cosmic treason that you're committing. And so I just think the trust there is cool. Like, when we start to know and understand the character of God through scripture, we can bring even our anger, which like, I feel like is rare, right? Like, most Christians, when they become angry, at least in my conversations, even from this last Sunday, people immediately think like, I should be past this. Yeah. I should be more mature. I should be beyond this. I shouldn't have road rage. I shouldn't snap at my kid. I shouldn't argue with my wife. I shouldn't explode during this board game. Like, there's like this embarrassment that comes with it. And then so we say like, oh, I struggle with anger, or I'm frustrated. It's like, no, you don't struggle with this in the same way that a high school boy doesn't struggle with pornography. It's like, no, you're addicted. Like, this is not a struggle. It's full on. And so what do we do with that? We either try to manage it, right? And it's like, you just keep it in this kind of little ball. Or I think that what's so instructive about the way David starts is he just goes immediately to the Lord, and going to the Lord seems to change it for David. Yeah.
And it's really interesting that he appeals to something specific about the Lord too. It's just like, when I call to you, my righteous God, which is really fascinating, because I mean, he could have appealed to any of his characteristics, like the God of wrath, the God of, Yahweh, like calling on that name, but he goes to the righteousness of God, which I guess would inform my next question about some of the specifics of what you think is happening in this moment, because he presents 2 how long statements, but instead of how long, O Lord, he's directing it at a very specific group of people around him. So the first one, how long will you people turn my glory into shame? And so he's addressing the righteous God and saying, how long, people around me, will you turn my glory into shame? So I want to camp out on that glory into shame piece, because I feel like that is the unlock in this, is figuring out what that exactly means. And so as I was thinking about it, like on face value, going back to David's character again, it's like, man, this guy like loves himself some David, right? He's probably like, he has a specific set of glory, and then that glory is being brought into shame. So as you were wrestling with this phrase, like, okay, what does it mean that somebody or around the people around David are bringing his glory into shame? Like, help us unpack that. Like, I think that informs a lot of what David's cry is here.
Right. Which, I mean, this is a lot of the Psalms, right? Like, some of the Psalms, we have really good context for what's going on around it. Yeah. Others of the Psalms, you're like, we don't really know what was happening. So like Psalm 51, you go like, oh, we know exactly where this falls in the life of David. This one is a little bit more ethereal, right? It's like, what exactly is that glory that he's talking about? What's happening, right? What's being brought into his shame? Like I wonder if some of this is him venting what he's experiencing and what he's feeling, like how much of this is like righteous and how much of this is him like just taking his immediate emotion reaction to the Lord. And I think either way, David's Psalms typically filter into truth, if that makes sense. Like he feels things really big, which I love. Like even in his like angry Psalms, there's moments where you're like, whoa, like you're allowed to say that. Like you can pray that way. And I love that God put it in the Bible as an example, you know, to say like, yeah, no, you can talk to me like that. Like I'm cool with that. Like I think that's helpful for me in my prayer language. But I don't know, like I'm curious, like in your research and your thoughts, like what do you think was going on specifically with David?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think we don't get any evidence in like the subscripts, like Psalm 51. I'm pretty sure the subscript is like in the events
in the wake,
what was happening,
of Bathsheba,
Uriah and Bathsheba.
Yeah,
but this one, it's very blank. And I was just camped on like, all right, what caused David to say, I have a modicum of glory that could be brought into shame? And you could read it one of two ways. I guess the first way you could read it is like David is being arrogant, like, I can't believe like you brought my glory into shame, like his reputation.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's some element of that there because like you said, we do see David kind of like entering into these spaces where he just makes some rash decisions based on his power.
Yeah.
Like go kill this guy because he's an enemy or like go get rid of him. The alternative is he does see a connection between his position as the king of Israel and, I mean, you look at throughout, it's like the anointing that he receives from Samuel at the beginning. Yeah. There's like a modicum of like, okay, I understand that this position that I'm in is connected to the glory of God. Like, I think I was looking at David's last words in 2 Samuel, and it was like, the Spirit of the Lord spoke through me. So he understands that like, there's something connected to this position as king of Israel that is glorified because it's God's chosen people. And then, anything against the king, the Messiah, the anointed one, Mashiach, would be bringing that glory into shame, I suppose. So it's like, maybe they're just rebelling against him. And you see that all the time throughout 2 Samuel,
right.
1 and 2 Samuel, sorry. So you could either go the arrogant read, which is kind of fun to think about, or the like, hey, there's something like really serious about defaming the king of Israel.
Yeah. My guess is it's both.
Probably, yeah.
Like David was messy.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not sure he could experience either one of those alone.
Right.
Like it feels like a hybrid, you know?
Yeah. Because he doesn't say like the Lord's glory. How dare you bring the Lord's glory into shame?
Right.
It's my glory, which is like, I could see that. I could see the little bit of arrogance creeping in.
But also like, I mean, I kind of appreciate that he didn't say the Lord's glory because he is understanding of his position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this plays into the whole, like I've joked about this before, but when somebody's like, oh, that was a great sermon. And it's like, oh no, like that was all the Lord. It's like, no, that was you, right? Like if it was the Lord, it would have been better. Right. Like if Jesus stood up and gave a sermon, like hopefully it's a lot better than mine. But like David understands like his humanity in it. Of like, this is my glory. Like you are calling out me and yet I'm bringing that to the Lord. And so there's like a flow through, but he understands like his own position in it, you know? So it's like, man, when I stand up and preach a message, do I hope God speaks through me? Absolutely. But I'm not like unhinging my jaw and letting the Spirit of God flow through me. It's like, no, I'm Austin Payne. Like I'm coming to this message with me, and there's humanity in that, and there's brokenness in that, and there's my own arrogance and pride in that. But there's also like a desire to honor and glorify God. And like, that's the mess of humanity. And I don't know. There's something about David that's extremely human.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason we get him as this picture of like such a mess. And yet God uses him in some like incredible, tremendous ways. The Psalms are fascinating because of the character of David, you know?
Yeah. And I think it could be really helpful to think that because it's like so often we over spiritualize things. And it does feel like this divine partnership where it's like working together at the same time. And yet you feel it. Like if somebody were to like bring your name, Austin Payne or AJ Venegas, into shame,
Yeah.
we would feel that.
For sure.
You know, and so we would probably be angry. Like there'd be a modicum of anger there. So the nuances of the Psalms.
Yeah, no one could ever dislike AJ Venegas. Impossible.
I don't know.
Impossible.
I'm sure there are people out there. Leave a comment if you're out there.
Somebody you struck out, baby. Yeah.
Well, let's go to the second one here. So we have, how long will you people turn my glory into shame? And then the second one, how long will you love delusions and seek false gods? So it seems like maybe these two are connected by bringing the glory into shame and then loving delusions and seeking false gods. I feel like you were fascinated about like the gods available at the time and like what they were doing. Help us fill us in of like, just scripturally speaking, like what were people doing when they sought false gods? I feel like it's not just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Good for you.
For sure.
There was like a level of
I mean, the great irony of this is like David himself sought delusions and false gods left and right. So it's like, if only he would have learned from his own words, which is a good word for all of us. But yeah, like, I don't know, you think about modern context, 2026, like I've very rarely walked into somebody's house and seen like, they're like, oh, those are our gods, you know? Like, but idolatry is just as prevalent now as it has been ever. But the first like 3 of the 10 commandments directly address idolatry, right? God is infinitely concerned with idolatry. I think it was probably a little bit more explicit in the ancient Near East, is like, if you didn't worship the one true God, Yahweh, you were worshiping these like lowercase g gods, right? Like think about like Baal and the Asherah poles and, you know, these different gods that were at the time prevalent in these pagan societies. What I mean by pagan is just non-Yahweh worshipers. And so the history of Israel, right? If you look at, you read 1st and 2nd Kings or Judges or whatever, the language is always like, again, the nation of Israel did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And like that, again, is always them chasing after some lowercase g God, right? Like I've been obsessed with the story of Elijah recently. And so like 1 Kings 16 is fascinating. When Ahab comes into power, it says like he did more evil even than Jeroboam. And you're like, geez, well, what did Jeroboam do? And it's like, if you go back to 1 Kings 12, Jeroboam was the one who was like terrified that Israel was going to go back to Jerusalem. And so he set up 2 worship centers, literally to worship golden calves. And you're like, bro, like my brother in Christ, like, have you not learned your lesson from the history of Israel? Like Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, like, Moses is taking too long. Aaron sets up, right, golden calf worship. God comes down, judges. Well, 1 Kings 19, they're back on Mount Horeb, right? It's same mountain. Like Elijah's at the end of himself. God whispers, speaks to him. So like, I'm not done with you. Go back, establish my kingdom, establish my rule. But the whole story is like Israel just continuing to fall back into the same trap over and over and over and over and over again. But like me as the modern day reader, it's really easy to look at Israel and be like, y'all are a bunch of idiots. Like, how could you possibly worship golden calves again? How could you possibly, like 1 Kings 16, I think I've probably gone off on this before on this podcast, but like they rebuild Jericho at the cost of his firstborn son. You go back to Joshua 6, they knock down Jericho. Joshua stands up. It's like, anybody who rebuilds Jericho, it'll cost them their firstborn son. Like there's so much history in the Bible that to understand like redoing the same sins over and over and over again is the frustration of David. Like how long will we keep doing this as a nation? And the great irony is like he himself leads his nation into the exact same thing, right? Like he counts his armies at the end of his life and does the very thing that God tells him not to do, not to mention all the Bathsheba stuff. But yeah, I think a part of that is David's representative role as king, looking at his people, both concerned with his own reputation and his own name, but also there has to be some like vented anger. And a part of that I think is righteous. Like it is the anger of God, the jealousy of God going like, how long will these people rebel against me? These stiff-necked people, right? Like you hear God's heart and his own righteous anger with his own people, right? And like the judgment that comes with that, and then the mercy extended, and like it's what makes the narrative of the Old Testament leading up to the cross beautiful. But yeah, the lowercase g gods is fascinating, especially if you spiritualize it. Like I think a lot of my upbringing, I just thought like, oh, they're just not real gods.
Sure, yeah.
There's one true God, and then there's like a bunch of nothing, until you start thinking about like demons and Satan, and it's like, what were those lowercase g gods doing? They for sure had power, not Yahweh power, but they had power.
Yeah.
And were leading people away from truth, distorting what Israel knew to be true, like tempting them back into it. And then it's like all the same things happening today.
Yeah. It feels like throughout scripture, it's a very strong warning not to dabble into that stuff. I was just like, you don't know what's going on underneath that. But delusions and false gods. I was really intrigued by delusions. Just haven't really heard that word in scripture all that much. So kind of like did a deep dive into it. Reek is the Hebrew word. I don't reek of anything. But
Reek.
Reek.
This reeks of delusions.
And it's very interesting. Like it carries the same meaning of like vanity or vain, which is kind of interesting. And maybe you're thinking Ecclesiastes. I think it might be a different word because that's hevel.
Right.
But it's just very interesting where it appears other places. And going back to like Leviticus 26, which you'd be like, where's that? It's, hey, if you listen to what I'm doing, I'm going to bless you. Like all the things that you're going to put your hand to, I'm going to shower my blessings. But if you will not listen, going back to that, like, hear my prayer, listen, you're going to plant seeds in vain. You're going to your strength is going to be used in vain, in reek. So it's like emptiness, like nothing and false gods kind of carries that weight. So I just found that connection interesting. And then Psalm 2, of course, why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in reek, in vain? And so it seems like opposition can be encapsulated by like these delusions, this word vain. And so it just seems like we have a people group that are totally against David, that are bringing his name through the mud. I appreciated how you brought that out too. And are loving, opposing, and bringing delusions and seeking false gods. I love this anchor that you said. Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. So it seems like there's two things that he's anchoring himself. One, the set apartness of who he is, and then the ability to communicate with the Lord. Help us see, in the midst of all the chaos that David is walking through, the anchoring of that passage. You know, if David is feeling this emotion of anger, of this righteous anger at the people that are bringing his name through the mud, bringing the glory to shame, how does this anchor? How does this help anchor?
Yeah, I think about my own experience with anger. Like silly, trivial anger isolates, right? You get angry, storm off a basketball court, or you get angry in like a board game and then start sulking. You get angry with your spouse in an argument and you give the cold shoulder and you just go like internalize. Like anger is very isolating. But then I think about like righteous anger too. Like what I brought up in the sermon with like, CPS cases or the foster system or whatever, like it feels like this great injustice, and the cry of anger is like, does nobody see this? Like, does nobody with any like actual substance or power give any like care towards this that can actually change, right? So I think the anchor that David uses that's so instructive is God sees, God cares, God listens. Like he's both reminding himself of that, and also it feels like he's hanging his anger on that of I'm not alone in this. And I think that's the instructive step, right? That's the like prescription, if you will. Like if you went to the doctor and the doctor was like, you have anger. This is the diagnosis. Like you're an angry person. And then they were like, okay, now the prescription is when you experience this, ask these questions 4 times a day. The doctor's like telling him, like, make sure you do this. And then if and when the anger isolates, which it will, like when you take that to the Lord, this is how it changes it. Like he does see, he does care, he does listen, both in the trivial and in the injustices, like in that righteous anger. And I think that's a really cool prescription from this psalm, is like, if you're crying out, does anybody care about this? It's like, the answer is yes. And even in the trivial, right? Like if one of your kids comes to you like trivially angry about something, my daughter's shoelaces are driving her crazy, and she comes and she's a mess. It's like, I'm not like, oh, the shoelaces. Maybe I am sometimes, but like, I want to bend down. I want to like enter in. And I think God does that same thing with us, which is cool. Like that's his face shining upon us, is there's an invitation to know that you're not alone in the midst of your anger, trivial or righteous.
Yeah. I feel like that father motif has carried this entire series so far.
Yeah.
Just like when you're honest to the Lord, you can have a heavenly father that could react in a really just not good way, or in a way that you're saying, like a very tender hearted, like, I want to get down there and tie the shoelaces.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating that.
But he's not just tender, he's powerful, you know, which is like, that's I get to hang my anger on that too. Yeah. Is like a God, not just a God that's like tender and like sash wearing and holds a lamb. Yeah. Like a God that's like,
I see it.
He is wrathful and angry. And that's helpful, right? I think in the West, sometimes we struggle with that picture of God, because we're like, how could a good God send people to hell? But often, like in most of the world, where like injustice is a lot more rampant than in our world, like we actually crave that side of God, right? Like this is an ugly picture, but if you think about being in a setting where in like a war-torn country, somebody could come in and like take your kids and, maybe kill your spouse or whatever, like the question flips from how could a good God send people to hell to like, how could a good God forgive that person also, right? Like if the person who came into your home years later repents and comes to you and is like, hey, I became a Christian, I'm a follower of Jesus too. It's like, what? Like, no, I'm not okay with that, right? Like I think about like Elizabeth Elliot, who went back into the Waorani tribe in Ecuador and forgave the very men that murdered her husband and left her 3-year-old as, without a dad. And like the power of the gospel brought them together. Like the only way that type of forgiveness is possible is through the power of the gospel, that God's wrath is poured out on Jesus. Or like I think about, Jews that forgave Nazis that killed their fellow Jewish people in Holocaust. And like you watch these stories or read about these narratives of like deep forgiveness. Like that question flips from how could a good God send people to hell to like, wait, how could a good God forgive? Like grace becomes the thing that you have a harder time with rather than wrath. But I think that wrath is what brings both of those together, is like what Jesus absorbed on the cross was the punishment for the person who came in and like killed your wife and took your kids. Again, it's such an ugly picture. I apologize, but I think it is helpful for us to understand a God that is not just gentle and tender, shoelaces, but like powerful and wrathful, and like holds both of those things together. Like he's not loving sometimes and wrathful at other times. It's like he is both perfectly always. That's hard for us to wrap our heads around because we can't, right? We're typically one or the other. But that's what God's holiness is, like all of his attributes held in tension together, which is gnarly.
I think of some of the earlier analogies that we've drawn of like God as a rock, where it's like in the rock you are hidden, you are safe because rocks are strong. Or even like refuge and fortress connected together, where it's like in it you find peace and love and harmony, but like the fortress aspects make it like, okay, there's a war going on. So there's the strength piece, and then there's also like the tenderness. So it's like, going hand in hand. And as I'm looking at the passage, know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. I think that puts like a new image in my head because I'm thinking like set apart as like, all right, you have a specific role in what you're about to do, but maybe there's that and set apart for what I have for this people that you're crying against, which I think can go probably hand in hand again, in the same way that like I set you apart to have this relationship with you, and these people that are dragging your name through the mud and seeking false gods and bringing you toward delusions, like I've got something for them too. So that's the anchor. That's a powerful anchor.
It's a good anchor.
The Lord hears when I call him. And so we move on into this passage, into the heart of this passage, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different imperatives of, hey, do this, do this. And the first one, tremble and do not sin. And you camped out on this one because the quote from Ephesians 4, be angry and do not sin. That tremble word. Remind you of the word again in the Hebrew?
Ragaz?
Ragaz, yeah.
I had a brain fart there for a second. I was like, oh no. Ragaz.
The one thing that you left us in the sermon of like, if you don't remember anything, you just go out and say ragaz.
It's ragaz, right?
I think so.
Okay. I'm like, when you say something over and over again and it starts sounding like not a word. You're like
ragaz.
Ragaz.
Well, it's interesting. I know in my reading, we're both on the sermon review team. And when I was reading this, I was still connecting David's words to him communicating to the people. And yet it's very interesting that Paul takes these same words and communicates it back to the Christian. So it's almost like there's this multi-layered perspective going on of like these simple commands, tremble and do not sin. So walk us through this first one, be angry and do not sin. What stands out to you about this first call based on everything that we've been saying?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is just like the fact that the anger in and of itself is not sin, right? Like that is helpful for us to understand.
Yeah.
Is like anger is a part of the emotional Rolodex. What you do with that anger then becomes the question. So I think that's what Paul picks up on. I think that's what James picks up on. There was a class at Biola that I never took that I wish I would have, but I want to audit it or something. But it's called New Testament Use of the Old.
Okay.
And the New Testament does this, right? Paul does it. Jesus does it. Where they quote the Old Testament and you go back to the Old Testament and you're like, wait, what? Like, how does that say that? And yet the Bible plays on itself where like things that are said in the Psalms that are like these messianic Psalms were probably not meant to be messianic by the author. And yet like the way that the Bible brings them together, which is like a part of the like supernatural, like God's word being alive and active. And so in this, like, I think there is a duality to it where David is using it in his context, but then Paul pulls it out of that context because it's a biblical truth that like we can be angry and not sin. Like that's helpful for us to understand because we're not alone in it. Where do we take it? What do we do with it? All those questions.
Yeah, I was really meditating on this because I was like, man, what is exactly going on? And I was thinking, okay, if David is the Messiah, which is the Hebrew word for anointed one, and he's struggling with people that are seeking after false gods, delusions, and he's telling them, tremble and do not sin, like be angry and do not sin, like, hey, this is your response, like tremble and stop sinning. In the same way, if we replace Jesus in that same messianic role, he is the true Messiah, and we then become the ones that, fall into delusions, seeking false gods. We end up falling short. And so now Jesus is pointing to us and saying, like, in your anger, don't sin, So it's like there's so many layers to the Psalms that it gets like all these different perspectives. And then Paul pulls it out and says, like, hey, this is advice to anybody that is wandering from the Messiah.
For sure.
Be angry, do not sin.
For sure.
Which is really interesting. Like in our flesh, we're going to have that anger experience. And then I love how you brought up James too, of like, be slow to anger, which again is not like saying avoid anger at all costs, but be slow to it.
Right.
Any other thoughts on tremble and do not sin?
Nailed it.
Okay.
I mean, the James passage crushes.
Yeah.
Just like, if you're slow, you're going to be angry about the right things. Like, slow to speak, quick to listen.
Yeah.
The anger of God does not produce the righteousness that God, or the anger of man does not produce the righteousness that God requires. Like, that same righteousness play is like, it's just so good. It's like, be slow, ask the right questions, count to 10.
Yeah.
Smell the flowers.
Let's get to the next one here. When you were on your beds, very interesting. Search your hearts and be silent. Search your hearts and be silent. I was really intrigued by, I'll throw this at you and then get your response on this. These two imperatives again, search and be silent. Very interesting word, search. Like, I was thinking, there's like, search me, O God, in Psalm 139. It's a different word. So this one is amar, and there's 24 times this gets used in the scriptures. This is the only time it's used as search. The rest of the time it's tell, cry out, or say. And so it's really interesting that this gets translated search. And then be silent carries the weight of wailing and lamenting. And so talk to us about how being on our beds and searching our hearts and being silent affects our anger.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Paul connects this with like, don't go to bed angry.
Yeah, do not let the sun go down on your anger.
Right.
Yep.
Which I think is like oversimplified. I feel like I grew up believing that's like,
I cannot go to bed angry.
Literally can't go to bed angry. Like, that's sinful. Which maybe there's something to that. But I think like about the person who, I don't know, maybe you're isolated, you're seething, you lay down in your bed and you're just like restless, and it's like, God, like you just can't, you can't wrap your head around whatever it is that you're trying to wrap your head around. And I think there is something to that, like searching and meditating, going to God, telling, reminding yourself, like trying to get to the core of it, right? Like oftentimes when I'm angry about something, there's layers to that. It's like, what am I actually angry about? Like, it wasn't the traffic, or it wasn't the board game, or it wasn't the example I used, like the pickleball game. Like for me, why do I get angry and competitive in a pickleball game? A lot of my identity is wrapped up in like me being an athlete and being good at things. And if I can win, then I get the approval of man around me. If I lose, then I'm losing grip on what makes me. So it's like, so much of maturity for me has not come from like learning to like, meditate goose faba before I play sports, but it's like, can I go into sports operating from victory, not for victory? Can I change the definition of winning? Like, what's winning playing pickleball with Nash? Is it walking away having gotten to 11 points before the other team got to 11 points? Or is it like me and my buddy Nash having a good time together, bonding with the leaders around me because we do kingdom work together? So it's like some of that's like the searching, it's like what's actually happening. As I lay down on my bed, oftentimes when I lay down in bed, I'm walking through my day. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in my soul. Or I'm just like numbing, turning off the noise, trying to fall asleep. And so I think this is like, don't do that. Like search, slow down, like what's happening, remember. Like I think some of that is David trying to get to the core of what's actually happening in his heart and desiring that for his people. Like, let's get back to the core of what's happening here, which, like, spoiler alert, when he gets to the end of the psalm, he can lay down and sleep. I think because he's done this. Like he's done the hard work of, when you lie down in your bed, do this so that when you hang your anger, I just keep thinking about a coat on like a rack, like a coat rack, like put it where it belongs, and then rest. Because you know that your anger is being held by the right person.
It's very interesting how, like, in those moments, like when you're on your bed, I don't know, there's like a moment of perspective that hits, like when you are falling asleep. Like, I am finite. Like, I'm about to enter a state of unconsciousness for 8 hours, or hopefully.
That'd be nice.
And it's like, you can either have this be a restless moment, or searching your hearts and being silent. It's very, very practical advice for anybody that is drifting away from the Lord's anointed one here. And so we'll go to this third one that offers two more imperatives. Offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. I think even you go back to the beginning of the psalm and you see people that are drifting away from or entering into false gods, relationships with false gods, and you'd presume that they would bring sacrifices to those false gods, sort of like the golden calf incident. And so if that was the way they were drifting, how do we drift when we drift away from, when we feel like we're drifting away in our anger from the Messiah? How does this advice help? Offering the right sacrifices, the sacrifice of the righteous, and trusting in the Lord.
Yeah, we'll tackle this in Psalm 51 again, because the whole section that I feel like I glossed over this, largely because when you're teaching the Psalms, you kind of have to pick your battles.
Yeah.
When you're teaching a 30-minute message of like, what am I going to dive into here? And like, what is the overarching narrative that we're focused on? So we're like focusing a bunch on anger. Psalm 51 is actually like the reference point of what we talked about in sermon review, which is like the, like God doesn't desire sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Like he desires the heart behind sacrifice, which is like from Psalm 51. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we'll get into that a little bit in a couple weeks here, but I do think the verse here of like sacrifice and trust goes back to that, like what is actually going on here? Like, can we get to the heart of the matter? Don't do things just because they're the right things to do, right? That's where it's like, the verse in Psalm 51 is like, God doesn't require this sacrifice, which comes back up in the New Testament in the writing. Mm-hmm. But I love, again, it just feels like a step deeper into the analysis of what's actually happening in one's heart as we understand what it means to sacrifice, what it means to trust, and then like ultimately what that's pointing towards. Feels like there's a lot of like foreshadowing in that language, especially with David. But yeah, there's so much going on there for sure. Yeah.
I'm thinking like, in Psalm 51, I'm sure we'll unpack all the different Old Testament references to the sacrifices, because if David wrote it first, then you'd get the prophets, and they're all hinting back to this motif of like all the different, like the Lord not caring too much about like the sacrificial system, but like the heart underneath it, and that will lead to the correct one.
Right.
And so I'm thinking like, okay, if this is about anger and we're being angry, we're not sinning, we're meditating on our hearts, on what's going on our beds, I wonder if there's like a level of like sacrifice that it requires to let go of our anger sometimes.
For sure.
Of just saying like, hey, this isn't the right heart posture to approach the situation. That's sacrifice. Like,
for sure.
It could be really easy to.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I think being angry and not sinning is not possible unless there is sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And like a part of the sacrifice is like the letting go, but a part of the sacrifice is like putting anger where it belongs, right? It's like, like, don't get angry while playing pickleball. Cool. Hey, somebody just murdered your husband, Elizabeth Elliott. Like, don't be angry. It's like, good luck.
Yeah.
Unless there's sacrifice, right? Unless she genuinely believes that that's been paid for. And I think that's where the sacrifice is like probably bigger language there, is like Jesus paid for the penalty of sin of the Warani people. And therefore Elizabeth Elliott can let it go. Mm-hmm. Like, is forgiveness possible without sacrifice? No. So like, is anger without sin possible without sacrifice? That's interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Comment if you think I'm wrong.
The exploratory nature of this podcast is great. Of just what it means to offer the sacrifices of the righteous in that moment of anger, knowing that we serve the Messiah that sacrificed everything, took on God's wrath.
Right.
And so that it could end that cycle, like
right.
I feel like anger just produces that cycle of sin over and over.
Right.
And
which is ugly. So much deeper. There's so much more substance to that than just like when you offer the sacrifice of the righteous in the midst of anger, on a surface level, it just feels like you're checking the like Yahweh boxes or like the church boxes. Like I go to church, I sing the songs, I'm not angry. But it's like to actually be angry and bring that to the Lord, knowing that he can handle it, is not just like playing Christian. It's like it's not just like a shell of a Christian. It's like there's actual like substance behind that, because there was a real sacrifice and like a God that gets wrath. Like that feels so much realer to me. There's so much more depth to that than just playing nice, you know?
One phrase you just used there, taking your anger to the Lord because you know that God can handle it. So that last part, I feel like, is where the psalm ends, of like, all right, how can the Lord handle this?
Yeah.
And so let's just read the first part of that last section here. Many, Lord, it's probably all capital in your Bible. So many, Yahweh, are asking, who will bring us prosperity? Let the light of your face shine on us. So I wonder, reading the Psalms, thinking about all the ways that the people are seeking delusion or dragging David's name through the mud. I wonder if this is part of it, of like, is this guy David going to bring us the prosperity? And so David's response that you focus on in number 6, let the light of your face shine on us. How do you think that question is connected to this great blessing in number 6 here?
Yeah, I mean, prosperity is the face of Yahweh. Like, there is no prosperity without that. I think Solomon proved that. It's all Hevel.
And so the light of your face shining on us, tell us about a little bit more about that, because I know it seemed like you were very intrigued by number 6 and how that informed the rest of the psalm. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's so good. It's all over the Psalms, this like theme. And the relational element of God with us. I think if I had to summarize the Bible, and people much smarter than me have summarized the Bible as God with us, right? Like from the garden back to the garden in Revelation, that it's like God desiring to be with his people. And so prosperity comes, especially in the Old Testament, covenantally, through God being with his people. So it's like, you think about whether it's Abrahamic or Mosaic or Davidic, it's like some level of God being with his people, and obedience bringing blessing, disobedience bringing exile and like distance from God. So God's face shining upon his people is the like definition of God being with his people, and like things are in harmony. It's like you're running your hand down a 2x4 in grain versus like up the 2x4 and you get a splinter. Like, yeah. And then the literal picture of God having a face is just amazing, because you think about like God's face relationally. Like you think about, I don't know why I think about this, but like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like Lucy seeing Aslan and Aslan turning, and like Aslan's like face lighting up as Lucy like puts her hands in the mane of this lion, and it's like, again, that's not this like gentle kitty cat. Like I love the line in that. It's like, is he safe? And it's like, oh no, he's not safe, but he's good. Like that's so different. And so it's like a good God, Yahweh, who is who he is. I am who I am, turning his face towards you, and in all power, in all like majesty, his face lighting up when he sees you. Like that prosperity helps me lay down in bed and feel at rest, because I know if his face is on me, like what other injustice could I possibly care about, right? Like it puts everything into perspective when that priestly blessing becomes more than just like words that we say, and is actually something that I'm like, okay, if the Lord's face is on me, I'm good.
Yeah. And I love how the next line seems to be connected to this whole concept of like, all right, you're going to the Lord. He might not be safe. He is good. And so fill my heart with joy then when their grain and new wine abound. So it's pretty cool imagery here. Talk to us about grain and new wine.
Yeah. I mean, 2 signs of prosperity, right?
Yeah.
So, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but okay. I think about if the people that are dragging his name through the mud have that grain and wine and like they're living in prosperity, I imagine there's a moment of like, what in the world, you know?
Yeah.
and yet like what is true prosperity, right? I think this is like all throughout the Psalms also of like the wicked abounding or like good things happening to evil people, like not just asking the question, like how could bad things happen to good people? It's like, well, what about good things happening to evil people? This happens all the time. It's people that are walking completely opposite of God's plan for them, like living with wine and grain, prosperity. It's like, but again, I think it's bigger, zooming out, face of the Lord, desiring what is actually good and right and true. And like, it could seem extremely unjust if the evil and the wicked are prospering. But that's, Psalm 1, it's like not so with the wicked. Like, I think there's like meta narrative with the face of God and knowing that like all things will be brought to justice and craving that, which is hard. Like on this side of heaven, that's really hard.
Yeah. It seems like this is where like the multi-layered interpretation of Psalms comes in handy, because it's like, all right, for the people of David and for us, it feels like two different tracks here.
For sure.
Where it's like the people of David, if their complaint is prosperity, I could see David saying like, okay, I know what'll shut them up. Like when you finally like usher in the blessings, when we finally listen to you, all the blessings that you promised in Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, like when we listen, new wine and grain, that's where the language is coming into these promise passages. I think of Joel, I think of Joel 2 and 3 that are looking for a place where wine is abundant, flowing from the hills. Like Israel was looking for that, and if David wasn't doing it, of course they're going to attack David. And so it's like, Lord, when their grain and new wine abound, like it's going to be good. Like the prosperity is going to settle. And so then I'm thinking about us in the same way, like when we are angry and we start drifting away from the true Messiah and we start like getting into some dangerous territory and we're going through the process of wrestling with our anger, meditating in our hearts, like I just hear the Messiah saying like, I feel like they don't trust me. Just wait until I give them the blessing that I promised them, And it's like, now it's such a beautiful, like, God is not trying to harm us and bring these things. He like wants to usher us into his blessing with his face shining upon us. Like, I don't know. Those are the two tracks that I'm like trying to follow.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like, yeah, and then you get to like new grain, new wine. Like those are totally like ultimate kingdom, like hopeful language of just prosperity, abounding in the heavenly kingdom. So, yeah, that's again, Psalms is crazy, man.
Thanks a lot, Patty.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Well, we got to our final passage here. In peace, I will lie down and sleep. We had a guy that was wrestling with his own anger on his bed, trying to process what's going on in his heart, talking about the sacrifices. And it says, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. And so talk to the people out there that are just really wrestling with anger, that the Lord is maybe even feel angry at the Lord of the situation that they brought in. Maybe you need time to wrestle with these things. What do you want to say to the people that are wrestling with anger that came up to you after Sunday and we're just like, oof, I needed that message?
Yeah, man, there's so many layers to that question. I think angry in general and angry with the Lord are like two different things, right? Angry in general, I feel like is easier in some senses because you hear that and you're like, oh, yes, I need to go to the Lord with it. Knowing that he's both powerful enough to handle it and gentle enough to like meet you in it and not shame you. Angry with the Lord is like a whole other layer because you're like,
we need another
I'm angry.
Song for that.
Go with, go to the Lord. You're like, I don't want to go to the Lord. Like he's the problem. He's the one I'm angry at. And I would say in that, like God can handle it. Like there's so many times I feel like David is mad at the Lord and going like, how long, oh Lord? Like, or, we got that passage with Larry. I think there's so much beauty in the fact that we can just go and like crash against that rock and he can handle it. And yeah, like going anywhere but God is, you're avoiding the actual only one who can handle it, and his face desires to shine upon you in the midst of that. And so, yeah, I think that's just like language I would desire for our church, is to be like, man, trust that God's face will shine upon you when you draw near to him. Like, that's such a cool picture. It's just God's face lighting up when he sees you, like the God of the universe who spoke into existence all things. Like that God face on you, like that. I think that would solve a lot of my problems if I just remembered that all the time. Just like meditated on that.
Well, let's keep it on that word, because I think that's a good image to leave our audience with, that the Lord's face is shining upon you. And yeah, there's a promise there that he's going to lead us into safety, into a place of abundance, like whether this life or the next, like the Lord's face is still shining on you, and you can go to him. Like, I love that imagery of he's the rock that can bring comfort where we can hide in, but also the one that's strong enough to take the waves, of when they crash, when the anger crashes, and you can bring it to him.
Yeah,
so,
it's good.
AP.
Hey, always a good time.
Thank you.